Hello, everyone, and welcome to Warmachine, the state of the game. Today, we've gathered some of the content creators here in North America to engage in a Clash of the Casts discussion about the game of Warmachine and where we're at moving into the new year. My name is Mario, and I will be one of your hosts. My co-host today is the Boker Boss himself, Seth Cohen. Say hi, Seth.
Hi, Seth, and thank you so much, Mario. As first of all, I want to thank you for all the effort that you made and all the work you did to put this together. And as a test to make sure that all of our guests actually have muted themselves, let's have a round of applause, and we should only hear my applause. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just caught some people there, didn't we? So the state of the game, there's actually some history behind this activity, this podcast. Way back when in Hamilton, Ontario, there used to be the Southern Ontario Open. And every year at the Southern Ontario Open, they would grab folks who either had a podcast or were, big organizers. They'd get them in a room and they would talk about the game and where they felt the game was. And then in my second year of attending the Southern Ontario Open, they said, "Hey, Seth, would you like to join?" And I thought, hey, maybe the Boker Brawl is getting some traction in its second year. But it turned out some of the beer machine guys just had way too much to drink, and they were not ready to record a second round. So I got subbed in, and it was an amazing time. And then there was never another Southern Ontario Open. So it's been a long time since someone's done something like this. And, I think it's great that we're getting everybody together. There are certainly lots of other people putting out content out there in the world. There are certainly lots of other metas, and I'm encouraging anyone out there, if they want to get their disparate groups of people together to have the same discussion, go for it. This isn't the only State of the Cast podcast that can happen. All right, Mario, back to you.
Unmute myself. So yeah. Before we go any further, I'd like to do some introductions. When I call on you, could you please introduce yourself, tell us where you play Warmachine, and what kind of community content you create? So, Eric, I'm going to go to you first.
Erica, right?
Eric,
sorry.
yeah. So,
Eric,
Gonzo,
sorry.
Gonzo.
Oh,
All right, so Gonzo, I am one of a third of the More Than Dice podcast, where we do all type of miniature type stuff, but we mostly play in the Midwest, mostly Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, that type of area.
And what kind of community content do you create?
We create all miniature content, all gaming content. We do RPGs, we do painting, we do sponsorship stuff. So you name it, anything nerdy, geeky, miniature, and tabletop related, we handle it.
All right. Next, I want to call on Isaiah from the Minority Report podcast.
Hello, everybody. I'm Isaiah, one third of the Minority Report, along with Damon and Terrence. I personally play out of Michigan. Mainly, I run in a lot of events out in Southeast Michigan, along with sometimes coming to some of the neighboring states. Damon and Terrence do usually things out of Tennessee and surrounding areas. But yeah, we do mainly focus on Warmachine, battle reports, reviews, and a few other things coming up soon. But that's us.
Awesome. And Erica and Andy from the Tried and True podcast.
hi. Hi, everybody. My name is Erica. I'm from Delaware Warmachine, Tried and True.
Muting.
All right, let's try this again. All right, hi, my name is Erica. I'm from Delaware Warmachine, Tried and True podcast. Sorry, Andy and I are in the same room. I am a local tournament organizer for Delaware Warmachine. I'm also a tournament organizer for Nova Open. Tickets go on sale March 1st. And I am the video editor and podcast host for the Tried and True YouTube channel.
Ditto.
Next, we've got Nate and Ryan from the Blightbringers podcast.
Well, hi. I'm Ryan. I am 2/3 of the Blightbringers podcast. We do, fun podcast discussing Warmachine, hordes, all the fun stuff like that. I'm trying to get into some painting stuff. We'll see if that actually pans out. And I play out of the Buffalo area.
Hi, I'm Nate. I'm the other third of the Blightbringers podcast. I play Warmachine out of St. Louis, Missouri. And I think we just generally talk about the game and hobby stuff.
And then we've got Dan from the Battle Driven podcast.
Hello, it's just Swanky from Battle Driven. Me, Riker, and Jeff are in like a 2-hour triangle from each other in the Northeast U.S. Our podcast is focused on really just competitive play primarily.
I'd say we've done a really fine job of getting folks from all around. Like we didn't just grab, the Northeast, or we didn't just grab, Arkansas, Texas. We got folks from all around, and I think it's going to make for some great discussion tonight.
Just to build on that thought, we've got Kyle as well from the Arcane Precision podcast.
I am Kyle, half of the Arcane Precision podcast. Play out of the Syracuse area. We're playing out of a new store, and they're actually going to be carrying the product, but we're working on content right now. We're working on a lot of the two-player box stuff right now.
And then Seth, you are from the Boker broadcast. Do you want to tell us what you do?
Mostly censor Arthur. That's the majority of my time spent on the Boker broadcast. We talk about the game. We talk a little bit about competitive. We talk a little bit about the rules. We talk about the fluff. We update people on what's going on with the Boker Brawl. And, I guess that's any given episode of what we're doing.
You also have objectively wrong opinions on pizza.
It has been noted that there are strong food opinions on the Boker broadcast and that you disagree with them.
So I'll just do a little intro for me. So my name is Mario. I live in the Pacific Northwest, specifically Vancouver, British Columbia. We have a podcast, an interview-based podcast for players that play in this area, and we do a little bit of coverage on YouTube for battle reports with some of the events that we run up here. Shameless plug for the Cascadia Championship Series. It's an invitational qualifier series up here. We had 9 qualifiers last year, and we're looking to do the same thing next year.
And do you have a position on pizza there in Canada?
Well, up here, pineapple pizza is called the Canadian. So,
all right. So we're not going to be discussing Canadian pizza anymore tonight.
I think pizza's off the table. So
Probably for the best.
I'd like to thank all of our guests for being here today. As we're meeting in a virtual setting, I'd like to remind everyone we are keeping comments brief and to the point. And if you'd like to respond to something, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom, and the viewers will probably see that. Our first topic today is about community growth. So what community growth are you experiencing? And we're looking for both pros and cons and challenges. And just as a reminder for everybody, we'd like to keep everything as constructive as possible. I want to throw this question to Erica first. I think that you've certainly experienced some community growth over the last year. Can you give us your thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Mario. So coming into community growth, especially in a post-COVID environment. So we did have a games club, which unfortunately it was Ice House Games, and it had been around for a while in Newark, Delaware, and that ended up not surviving COVID. So coming out of that, actually, my brother was the main lead on that wanted to try and revitalize the Warmachine scene. Community with wargaming has always been something that I've had a passion for. That's been really important. So growing up when I was in high school, being a nerd wasn't as accepted as it is nowadays. And my Thursday night D&D wargaming group was always something that's always stuck with me. It's always been really important. That's the group that introduced me to Warmachine. So with the community, that's kind of something that we're trying to replicate at our local level. So the big thing is knowing your audience and recognizing that. So do you have competitive players that like to travel and go to Steamroller? Do you have more casual and narrative-driven players? And then to provide a play space for that. So we started at my brother reached out to a local card shop and looked for a night that didn't have a lot of players coming in, and it ended up being Tuesday night. So we're like, hey, can we start a wargaming club here? And that's what worked. We ended up outgrowing that space over a quarter of after our second year. We actually couldn't even house steamrollers there anymore because we had so many people. We had to go to different games clubs. So our game club actually expanded to the point where we play at a brewery on Monday night and the card shop on Tuesday night, which has been great. The big thing is, I would say, listening to your players on what they want. We did a journeyman league that was kind of like a how-to, and we had hobby challenges and things like that. And if anyone's interested in looking at that document, we have that available for free on our Patreon. Not to plug it, but that document is up there. And that's been the thing is slow grow and accessibility of the game, just having models available for people passing by. Actually, since we've moved to the brewery, being in that more active space with more, walk through people traffic, I guess you could say, we've accumulated more people, I guess, from the population there than at the card shop. But yeah, I think the big thing is just knowing your audience and networking and collaborating. That was another thing where you don't have to feel like you need to start this thing from square one. We reached out to some local metas and other communities that had things like clocks, terrain. Back in the day, the old steamroller zones, we just didn't have that stuff. That was big. Seth, I think you and Steve and Portal Dave, shout out to him. Great meadows, great communities. They came out and really helped us start out. So not to plug it, but I will. The Warmachine Community Finder is a great tool to kind of help with that. So I would say if you're looking at community growth, don't feel like you got to do this thing alone.
I want to throw this over to Kyle because you folks over in New York have been seeing a little bit of growth and a little bit of traction with that as well. Can you talk about what's been happening up there?
Yeah, so after COVID, the community was pretty much John, Les, and myself. And Les and I were basically out. John dragged us back in with Mark IV. And we've built that from just the core 3 to now there's about 8 to 10 of us at any given time. And it's been, slow. A lot of the stores in the area have been burned with the Mark III release. So they just were sitting on all that product. So they didn't really want to stock the Mark IV stuff and start it. But we did find, after the acquisition, a store that was willing to start purchasing it. And it's not your typical game store. It's actually like a commercial art supply store that we can play in. So we have tons of different people coming in. It's a night where there's like 40K kill teams, now Warmachine. A bunch of the other games are all just kind of playing together and everyone's starting to see it. And we're having a lot more traction where people are interested in actually playing. So I'm really excited to see what this next year is going to bring with all of these new boxes and everything that they're coming out with.
So next I want to go to Isaiah. You are in the Michigan area. Have you guys experienced some growth up there?
Yeah, we've been that's what a lot of people post-COVID, a lot of things changed for us. A lot of the game stores not opening up for in-store playing. But we ended up having a store called Golden Rhino that kind of broke the mold and opened up a little earlier than some of the others, and was really supportive of us. So we went from our current group of about 4 of us, and we've grown pretty well actually. We just had 3 more players, two to 3 more players just start up again with us. Some returning, some brand new actually. So we've gone, I think we're about 14, 15 strong in our area, generally a little more spread out. But then I have another strong area in another part of Southeast Michigan that has another strong 8 to 10 people. And then we have another set kind of farther northern Michigan as well. So there's a lot of us actually in the area, and then come to like the northern parts of like Indiana and Ohio. So we have a pretty good outreach here for what we call our Great Lakes circuit. and it's been growing pretty strong ever since. So my biggest thing is that I push for friendly environments, fun and exciting events, less on the competitive side, but something to bring people in, have fun, and as long as they're enjoying themselves, we talk about it, we spread it, and that's all that matters.
Awesome. Next, I want to go to Gonzo. How is it looking in the Midwest?
We're starting to see a bit of resurgence, just like everybody else. COVID, kind of put a blanket on us, but we've had a lot of new people, and we've noticed that it's not just them buying the new Mark IV stuff. They're actually looking at some of the legacies, particularly like Infernals and Grimkins, because they can kind of grab up that whole entire army at once, type thing. And we've seen a bit of a resurgence on it. Not huge. A lot of people are still kind of, I'm holding on to my old game that I was playing before, and I don't want to go back to anything else. But we've seen a lot of new growth and new players, especially with the changing of the movement rules and some of the easier playability of Mark IV to some people. They think it's a lot easier for newer people to grasp, and we've seen a pretty good increase in that.
Awesome. And then Seth, you want to chime in as well?
Well, I got a follow-up question. So all of you, what percentage of these new players or your growing metas, what percentage of these folks are brand new to Warmachine versus returning from Mark 1, 2, or 3, versus having played another miniature game and I don't know, looking for something different? Well, I don't know who wants to go first, but just chime in here, folks. I'm curious what you think those percentages are.
So I would say, let's say for not counting my original group who still played, but for what added on to us, I would say out of, let's say, 12 people, I have 2 people who are brand new to miniatures in general. I have about 4 people who are returning. Actually, more like 6 people who are returning. And then we have some people who kind of, I would say, more recently returning, let me say, because some played like beginning of Mark III and came back, and for the rest are actually old Mark I, Mark II heads who took a disappearance and are now coming back. So yeah, we have a pretty nice spread for us.
Anybody else
Zeke
want
on
to give
that.
me a guess?
Yeah, I'm with Zeke on that. We had a decent amount too, of returning, and then some that like dipped their toes into it and then stopped, and then are coming right back pretty quickly. So it's a combination of both. Not seeing like a big swing in either direction.
Go
Erica,
ahead,
what
yeah.
about? I was going to say, Erica, because she had commented on the initially. What do you think? What are your percentages? What do they look like?
So for us, we try and do a lot of collaboration nights with other game systems. So on Monday night, the brewery is a chess club, and a lot of things in Warmachine are appealing to the chess community. So we're able to kind of uh talk with those folks, but to kind of echo what the rest of the panel was talking about tonight, most of the people that we have coming back, I want to say, like, yeah, majority of the population are all returning Mark II players that set out from Mark III. For new players, we picked up most of our brand spanking new people in Mark III. I'm trying to think, Andy, for Mark IV, did we get anybody?
Yeah, it seems like for us locally, I'm not sure whether it's for everybody, but for us locally, it's been difficult to get brand spanking new players to stick with the game. It's the game's never been more welcoming as a game system, but just for people getting their first dip into miniatures, Warmachine is still a lot to swallow. So we have experience of people being brand new, coming in, playing for a couple weeks, maybe buying a beginner stuff, just buying a handful of stuff and then getting out, and then they'll disappear for a series of months. They'll come back and they'll disappear for a series of months. So it's hard to get people to really commit to playing this as their hobby. Like it's a big commitment.
Where do you guys feel like the issue comes in? So, like, for example, my people who have started now are my returning players enjoy actually the movement changes, smaller units, and how things are moving around now. And there's not as many powerful pieces, aka the archons, stuff like that are no longer on the
I don't
table.
even think it's that. I don't even think it's that complicated. I think people have lives.
Oh,
we
no,
don't
sure.
have lives. Like
Yeah, I
no one
mean-
here has lives, but
True.
other
But
people, I'm sure, have things to do, and that this can't be like the number one thing that they spend their time on and effort on.
Okay, but then let's mine that down a little bit more. What do you think the returning players are returning for? Or what do you think they're returning to? However you want to phrase it. They're coming back. They're coming back for a reason. It did something stop? Did something gain? What do just your general sense of what has brought folks back to the game?
It's definitely a
Mark,
snowball effect, right?
I would say Mark
if a
3
couple
being
come back.
gone, at least on my end. So no, I'm serious. So like, I've actually had a lot of people who've come back saying that they didn't enjoy how things started in Mark 3, which I think a lot of people kind of had that initial feeling. And as things were rolling out, it just for them didn't interest them as much. So they definitely took a step back, basically on kind of how the game was going. But a lot of them saw the 3D printing, the new movement rules, and everything else, and it felt more enticing and more enjoyable. And then once they got a chance to play the game, where because like we give out demos and everything, it definitely felt like old Warmachine to them, that appeal that they were looking for, and they come back to play around now.
Schwanky,
So-
I feel like haven't let you in. You've been wanting to say something there.
Yeah, I was going to say, so let's go to Dan, and then we'll go to Ryan, who put his hand up, and Gonzo want to say anything, and then I want to move on after that. So,
Sure. Honestly, if we're looking at why people came back, I know just kind of like watching the way people showed up at Nova and Captain Con when I popped over to 40K for the year. I know Riker was playing AOS for about the same amount of time. Is like Mark III ended, Mark IV launched in kind of a weird state, scared a lot of us off. We went to play a different game, see if the grass was greener over on the other side of the fence. Turns out it isn't. And then we all kind of popped back, tried Mark IV again. And what I find interesting is almost everyone in the competitive side that was hard against the movement changes. We all really like it now.
so go ahead, Ryan.
So I guess I was going to say we're kind of having a similar situation as Dan is describing a little bit, whereas we're getting a lot of people who have been here forever. They left and they kind of came back, but we're having actually a problem getting like brand new people. Part of that is a specific situation we have here because we're in a lucky/unlucky situation of having just a ton of game stores. I think there's like 7 or 8 within a 20-minute drive of where I am. So yeah, to get people to actually see the game is actually difficult unless you're willing to go to a bunch of different places, some of which don't want you there because they don't carry the product, some of which aren't interested in mini games at all. So to actually grow it has become difficult for that reason. And then some of the stuff with the models that have come out that people have talked about where, they're kind of brittle at first, or like the first wave of stuff had the issues that it had, that has made its way around to various other communities who look at it and say, hey, I don't know if I want to buy into this if that's the quality I'm getting. So it's good that those things have been addressed, but I think the fact that they existed at all has kind of scared some people off and made it hard to try and get people to say, hey, you can come from 40K where it's all, hips plastic and you know what you're getting and it's going to be in one piece, to this where that you don't have the issues anymore, but because that problem was a thing that existed and people heard about it, they are going, I don't know if I want to buy in. And I think that's actually a big detriment, at least for us locally, to get new people.
No, and I hear that, but I would also throw in there that Andy's correct, right? The more success you have, the more success you have. So I think as people do get back in and play more, it's going to generate its own level of success.
For sure.
It's funny, Ryan, we have the complete opposite problem here because our population density is so low that it's hard for us to sustain local communities because, we're looking at 2-3 people sometimes that can make it out to a particular store that's within an hour. So we've had to use things like larger events to try and draw people from other parts of our community in together to try and run some events, but really that only attracts current players. It doesn't pull new players because they're large events and
Yep.
there's people that are competitive that want to play in those. But it's the only way that we can sustain a way for people to play. So we've had to cater to those people. And it's really hard to get new people in like that. So I want to go to Gonzo because he had his hand up first, and then Nate, and then we'll move on to the next question.
I also wanted to go on this that one of the things that I've noticed is, going and playing a game store at a convention. There's been people going, "What are y'all are playing?" And we're like, "This is Warmachine," and they're like, "No, it's not. You're using 3D terrain," which has been a big kicker for the community right now. And I'm really glad that a lot of people have started to embrace it a lot more, and it's becoming out because many people will look at it and go, "That's a boring looking table," and then you get someone that can 3D print a table and it's more eye-opening. Some of the older players coming back, it's also the ease of play, getting rid of arcing, the movement. You don't have to, make sure that your turn just the right way so you don't get that one, janky move. Has been a lot of good things to happen for the game also. But I've known plenty of times that I've been at some place and brought out 3D terrain and they're like, "That looks really cool. What are y'all playing?" And then we start talking and then they're like, "Oh, so this is a new era." And I'm like, "Well, it's always been there. It's just now it's being embraced more than ever."
It's a whole other topic, 3D terrain. It's I think we don't have it on our list to talk about today, but that's something that we can certainly look at in the future. I really enjoy its power with drawing people in. It's funny, we've had a lot of experience with some of our competitive players that don't necessarily, it doesn't make a difference for them, but it certainly has made a difference for visibility and just drawing the eye to the game. So, and you're right, it's always been a possibility for Warmachine, but it's just we just got away from it. And I really like that Mark IV has brought that to the fore again and made it something that is important in the game. So awesome. Okay, so I want to move on to the next question that we have on our list here, and it's about Steamroller 2024. So this one's going to be, I think, a lot of people are going to have things to say about it. So what's working? What can be frustrating? What changes would you like to see to the standard format? And what are your predictions for January? So first, I want to go to Dan because I think that your experience has been pretty competitive using the Steamroller format. So let's go ahead and get your thoughts on that.
So I think what I kind of want to say first is I love this packet. I think the missions are very dynamic. I'm a big fan of most of the stuff in it. Really happy to jump into it. Very different from the last packet, and I do truly love it. That said, here's all the bad things I'm going to say about it now. Overall, as a whole, I think the complexity is a little bit too high. And I think I had a conversation at Nova with some folks who are at WTC that really spelled this out for me. Is that, and I mean, Seth, you were there, so you can let me know if I'm wrong or not. Everyone found out at WTC that all of Europe was playing the scoring for Wolves at Our Feet different from how the US was playing it. They would flip-flop when the bonus was scored. So you would check for scoring and then have the bonus versus have the bonus first and then check for scoring. And no one knew they were doing that until they got to WTC, which to me,
that was a difficult few moments getting that out there, communicated to everyone. I felt badly that was the situation, but I mean, it's like you said, the packet, they needed to make this change. The days of the zones are over, and they needed something, and it's dynamic and it's fantastic, but it's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know, and I don't think they understood how to write. They didn't recognize that having a set order, a timing chart per se for scoring. They didn't realize that they would need that when they originally wrote it. I think that's what we were looking at there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you're fine. I summoned you. And yeah, and so I mean that kind of thing, little bits here and there can be changed as far as that. I also think, and Nate, I'm not sure if you agree with me on this one. back in the previous editions, I know people always used to complain about what was the term they used, two slugs hopping in the middle of the table to describe how the scenarios always played out. So for this packet, they just shot everything out as far as they possibly could, which is like it's cool in some respect. I do think it adds to players trying to use the whole table, which is neat. The only problem is in the game there are anyone who uses the Fury mechanic is kind of at an innate disadvantage there because Warmachine armies can really spread out into separate parts with no issues. Me as a Brian Bloods player, I cannot do that unless I'm playing Shadow Tongue. So it makes it's kind of a weird situation. Something they've addressed in the past is with lesser warlocks. Those are way rarer now than they were. Actually, I don't think there are any. There's not.
In Mark
There's Lesser
4?
Warcaster, yeah.
Not in the new factions.
So it just, I mean, it's not enough that I'm going to, obviously if you look at the tournament records, like, Fury factions are not underrepresented. So I don't think it's something that is, ruining the game for us. It does make it a bit annoying, and it is kind of weird to see that situation in a tournament kit. Nate, say something. I'm running out of stuff.
let's go to Nate.
Yeah. No, Schwenke, I think you're like absolutely on the money with that. So much so that at the beginning of the year when I was designing my competitive tournament pair, like I specifically picked beasts available in the faction I was playing with long leash and ambushing units and like a ton of things to actually be able to take advantage of and like stay alive kind of on the wider scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean,
and the only
Invasion-
Mark IV Junior is in a Warmachine faction.
Yeah,
So,
Signar, right?
Yeah, don't know what's going on there.
I mean, Invasion is my favorite scenario for entirely degenerate regions. It's because I have the best ambushing unit in the game, and it's very easy for me to just run away with that scenario. That to me signifies that something needs to be tweaked a little bit. But as far as January changes, and I don't know if you agree with me here now, I don't think much needs to change about this packet aside from little tweaks, little bits here and there. Aside from that, I really enjoy it.
Payload.
Little tweaks or take away payload. Honestly, I can't remember the last time I played payload because so many people just no.
You're very welcome, Dan.
Yes,
welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Andy.
Yeah, so I was looking at some of the statistics on Longshanks, and payload is by far the lowest percentage played scenario. So I think that there's certainly some feedback there that's unsaid.
Well, keep in mind though, for all the Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3 players in the chat here tonight, the Steamroller that we came to recognize and love as the best version of Steamroller that we could ever see, it took them years to get there. They went through lots of different iterations of things. They tried lots of things. Radial deployment is always one that comes to my mind, but there were other things. It's going to take them some time to dial it back in. And I think, and not to be an apologist or sycophantic, but for their first try, it's something that wasn't a rectangle or a circle zone. I think they did a really fine job. And it's like, Schwenke said, they got to tweak some stuff in there. Yeah.
So let's go to Andy because he had his hand up first, and then we'll go back to Nate and Ryan.
Yeah, and I have to disagree with Schwenke a little bit here. I don't like this packet and the way it's designed. At a certain point in Mark III, I know it was circles and squares and rectangles and all that stuff, but at a certain point, we didn't have to look at that packet. We could set any of those scenarios up blindly because of how intuitive it was to set up those scenarios. You're 18 inches off the table edge because it works out from a 4 foot by 4 foot table, right? It just kind of works. With the use of these objectives, and now they take up space on the board and all that stuff, adds a little bit of complexity. And some of them move, some of them don't. Some of them move on certain scenarios and don't move on other scenarios. I've still have to look at the as a TO, as somebody who runs events, I have to look at the library to make sure I'm setting these up correctly and scoring these correctly. Still, like it just screams too complicated to me. Like it's too complex. It needs to be dialed back just a little bit. I like
think if
the
we could
spread out.
I think if we could zoom in on the app, we wouldn't feel it was so hard to
No,
set up.
that's a reading glasses problem, Seth. That's a different issue.
Does anyone not have that little program in it that just gives you the layouts now? Oh, we gotta take care of that.
Ryan,
Anyway, I'm done belly aching.
Ryan, I gave it out at the last Boker Brawl. It was like on that card. It had a little.
Yes. See, I wasn't there because I was officiating a wedding.
Oh, okay. So you missed out. Sorry, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Nate, you had your hand up as well, and then we'll go to Kyle.
Yeah, I actually wanted to jump in. I think, Andy, you're bringing up a good point, and Dan, I think the issue I have with the current packet is like previous years, there's kind of these core mechanics and things that worked in the packet, and they were the same across all the different scenarios, but like where they were on the table and other things like that would be kind of mixed up. The issue I have in this packet is the complexity is like non-uniform. Like I would be okay with the objectives moving if only the 40 millimeter objectives moved. But like some scenarios they moved and some scenarios they didn't. But if it was only this one type, like if the complexity was uniform, where I could learn like a core set of things and I could go and be like, that's a 40 millimeter objective, it moves. Like I don't have to worry about the 50s and the 30s and whatever. I just think there's like an opportunity there to simplify. Yeah, thank you, Erica. Consistency. That would be the magic thing.
So let's go to Kyle. You had some comments.
Yeah, so as someone who doesn't get to play that many games, I get, 1, maybe 2 games in a month. I can say from a personal standpoint, this packet is really complex because I am constantly during the game having to pull up the scenario and be like, okay, what is moving? What's not moving? Is this scenario have a moving kill box? Like it's not like everyone's been saying, it's not been consistent like across the scenarios. Just for everything with it, it is difficult. And going back to getting new players in, having something this inconsistent and difficult is going to make it harder for them to actually want to continue after they've gotten those first few games in.
So Ryan, you want to say something?
Yeah. So I kind of agree that it's complex. I'm, I guess, of the opposite opinion that I don't think that complexity is necessarily a bad thing. I agree with Nate that it would be nice if it was like a core set of like, hey, just the 40s moved or just the 50s. That would be great. I think a thing that is actually really good with this packet, though, is that every single scenario can play so differently. So you don't end up in games where no matter what happens, after like turn 2, if you made this mistake or you didn't do this one thing, it just runs away from you every single time on every scenario. Obviously, that can still happen on a couple of them. Like that's a thing. But it's nice that, back in the day with like spread the net, if you didn't contest one turn, oftentimes that was the only chance you got. And things would just run away from you and there was nothing you could do about it. So I think that's definitely a thing in favor of this. I would agree that, it would be nice if it got brought back a little bit. I think, every single scenario except for 1 or 2 has things moving. It would be nice if there was a little more consistency in that, or if it was always, a single type. But like, it's nice that no matter what you're playing, it always feels like if you kept your own thing safe, you were probably in a pretty good position.
I really like that we've tried something new this year. I think that it certainly needed to be shaken up. I think in general, though, what we're all saying is that we kind of went from here to here, and there's just a little bit of we need to come back maybe to here. It's gone way out, and I think that it's good. Like, you need some experimentation. You need to throw stuff at the wall sometimes to try and change stuff, but maybe a little bit more consistency.
For those listening at home and aren't watching on video, Mario kept his hands very close together for here, and then for here, he spread them really far apart. And then for here, he kind of put them back in between where the other two things were. Okay,
Thank you,
please
narrator.
continue, sir.
I'm a very professional podcaster, Seth. I've been doing this such a long time. So
I think the other thing to take note of here is something Schwanky had said, where trying to play the whole table can be hard. But I think they've done at least something with that, with like the introduction of Magnus and Carver, despite the fact that Big Pig is, I think we can all agree, a bit overtuned. Having those options available to every army and things like the blimps available to every War Machine army gives some factions that might not have had that ability to spread out at least something that can do that.
Isaiah, did you want to jump in at all?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think everyone's pretty much hit the nail on the head. And Ryan actually brought up a point I was going to bring up with the addition of the mercenary models, and then kind of what you can do with these bigger pieces that initially everyone was kind of confused on why everyone got it, and then as you started looking at them being self-sufficient pieces, they had their place on the table. But no, I think everyone's kind of made the sentiment of things are experimenting right now, and then we're just trying to find a solid home through the testing. So we may, things may work out next year, but we may have, may need that one extra year of figuring it out, and then not, and at that point, I think we'll find it.
Awesome. So I want to wrap up here. Nate, did you have one more thing you want to say?
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to say is on the matter of SR24, your mileage varies incredibly based on whether you were playing 75 points or 100 points. And that is a thing that I think should not go unspoken, that the point level really determines your experience of this scenario packet.
I don't know how you can cover some of these scenarios at 75 points. It's that's a lot. Like that's a lot.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we see an alternate packet for 75 points and 100 points that just have a little bit of a tweak to it, so that it's a little bit easier to play at 75 points. But I don't know what's going to happen. But that's what I'm hoping for. So
SFG did actually come out and say that Steamroller was shifting to a 100-point format. They were going to have formats for all the other point levels, but like their tournament format was going to be 100 points. So the 75 kind of weirdness won't really be as much of an issue next year, no matter what happens with the packet, I don't think.
Yeah, but more importantly, we're going to see a packet for other point levels, which I think is really important for growing metas and for different player experiences.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's definitely something you want to have access to. Just one more quick thought I had while you guys were talking about the complexity level, and it was something that I'm wondering if it's not just a general trend in the industry, because like from playing 40K and watching a bunch of other games, especially the prominence of skirmish games right now, complexity in scenarios in general, I have seen go way up. 40K has moving objectives like crazy. They've got all sorts of stuff happening going on. So I'm almost wondering if the increased scenario, us having an issue with it doesn't have some element of old man yelling at cloud.
Just as a quick question, in the history of Warmachine, have we ever had more than one packet for different point levels? I don't think so, but
no.
Okay.
No, there hasn't been.
So that's a neat thing that if they actually do go through with it, that's a neat thing to see then.
Well, that actually segues very nicely into the next topic, because although we didn't have multiple packets, they did have scenarios for leagues. They had leagues that were intended to be played at different point levels, and they had other narrative experiences, right? So that is something that does exist in the current body of information, but how it's being used is is a lot different. So that brings us to the question as to what is the role of the narrative? What is the role of the Battleforge scenarios there? So Gonzo, Andy, who wants to start on that topic?
I can go ahead and take that, and then I'll segue into whoever needs to. I'm going to tell you right now, I love narrative play. Narrative play is amazingly fun. I have an incredible blast with narrative play. From coming from a tournament organizer standpoint and from as a player, it has drastically changed how the tournament, how the convention organizing comes in. Um, Usually those events sell out much quicker than anything else, and usually have to bring in multiple ones, and we get asked to run it multiple times a day. Now, they're usually limited to about 12 to 14 people, but we would have people set up and lined up, waiting. Did someone drop? Did someone drop? Did someone drop? And going back to the community and asking why scenario or narrative play has actually kind of picked up a lot these last 2 ways is those last 2 years is because cost. If you're going to a convention, you're paying $75 to $100 for a ticket, and then you're paying $20 to play in an event. And people have been saying, I don't like to go play in a tournament because I could play one game and be out 2A or 2B because I'm playing someone very, very good. They expect that because it's tournament play, but then I can go play $20 and go play a minimum of 4 to 6 hours in this narrative event and continuously play nonstop. And even if they lose, like someone assassinates their caster, a narrative play will come out and the guy will all right, your caster comes back at the back of the game and they get to play again. So that's been something that I've been really seeing a lot of is people are like, I get to play and I get to play a lot more and do fun shenanigans. Andy, what do you have to think?
I think there's two very different styles of narrative play. There's the style of narrative play that Gonzo, you and I run, like at a convention, is very sought after. It's very people gathering for a DM to play a D&D game. That's always going to be super popular. The other style is the style that SFG was coming out with, that you can play at your kitchen table and just have a game with your friends. That's the kind of game that needs to be played more and be more popular and be supported more by the company in leagues or in more maps or whatever it needs to be. Like that kind of narrative play is what's going to grow the game. Our version of narrative is great. It really draws eyes at conventions. It's all everything like that. But the 2-player narratives that you can play at home, that's kind of the stuff that needs to grow. Like that's the kind of stuff that needs to get bigger.
Well, I'll tell you, Nate, you had something you wanted to say. I want to get to you before I roll with that idea.
Yeah. I ran two of the ones in the app. I ran the date night scenario for my locals, which if you want to do that, is super fun. We did it for Valentine's Day. But you need something like 37 4x1 walls to run that scenario because the scenario literally is a heart made of walls around the middle of the table. It's very silly. So I ran that and I ran the Dragonfall at home. And I think, and this might just be that my brain is broken because of the type of player that I am. I enjoyed those scenarios while they were happening, but after playing both of them once, I could immediately see all the flaws with the scenarios and what things would be broken and what things wouldn't be fun to play against.
That is the hard thing with narrative though, right? Because it's never going to be perfectly balanced. They're generally intended to be played once or twice and then moved on from. You've played this, you move on with the story. Because the narrative stuff is, it's the stuff that comes out tends to be, as competitive players, we can solve it, we can fix it, and now it's unplayable.
Well, I'll tell you, we did Battle Forged scenarios at Boker Brawl last year, and I took one of the Battle Forged. I don't remember which one, but there are 3 scenarios: 1, 2, 3. They're linked. You're playing the whole campaign in a day, and like you talked about, that you need some very unique terrain. You need some very unique stuff so folks can fully participate. And that's part of the draw, right? People see the boats that we printed out on the table, and people saw the tents, and oh, hey, what's this scenario? Oh, I want to play this. But at the same time, so we had 6 guys, I think, playing that event that day. And by the end of the day, it was like, oh, I figured out on turn 1 how to win the scenario. Right, because no one had teched it for that, and by the end of the day, everybody had a perfectly good time. They were glad they did it, but they're like, we also never want to do it again. So, as much as I love that there's Battle Forge stuff to do, I do think there needs to be some level of, I'll use the word quality control with it, And I don't know if it needs to be a fan base thing or just something that they put up on their Discord. Put up create a Discord channel for it and let people put up the different house rules they've created for the different Battleforge things to help people along. I think that would I think something like that would help a whole heck of a lot. But I think that the Battleforge stuff, like Nate was saying, hey, we're gonna run it at our store. So at one of the stores where we're starting these new metas, the one right where I live. We had 10 people at game night 2 weeks ago, and that 10 people, I think 4 of them were new players and 3 of them were playing Crix. I can see that there's only so many weeks they're going to sit down and play Caster Kill or play a beginner scenario. Like at some point soon, I'm going to have to say, hey, on the following date, we're doing this special scenario, pick a side. And that's one of the ways we're going to, keep people engaged and keep them going. And if I didn't have these Battleforge things to pick from, I would not, I don't know what I would draw upon, right? Because, even when it comes to narratives, I want to make sure I say this. And Andy Gonzo, you guys are knocking it out of the park with your narratives. We are definitely the junior partner when it comes to the narrative at the Boker Brawl. We're getting there. We're moving it forward, but you guys are killing it. And I always say a rising tide raises all ships, and this is a perfect example. Your fantastic narratives made me want to make my narratives better, because I also got tired of people saying, "Well, this was fun, but it wasn't as good as what happens at Warfare Weekend or Nova." But anyway, so that's where I think this thing has its place, because your players have to do something besides a steamroller or a caster kill, especially when they're newer and at smaller point levels. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of these issues that we're talking about came up with the Infernal campaign. I don't remember what it was called. Right at the end of Mark III.
Oblivion.
Oblivion, yeah, thank you. So I remember listening to the Chain Attack review of those scenarios, and it certainly need a little bit different of an attitude going into playing those games. And one of the things that they did was review some of the things that you could do to break those scenarios wide open. And we chose not to do some of these things on purpose because we want to preserve some of the experience and some of the fun. Because if somebody decided that we want to break this, it's not going to be fun for everybody. So I want to go to Ryan because you had your hand up, and then Isaiah as well, because that's who had their emojis up. So go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so I just actually wanted to comment on something Andy said, where it was, we want to make the narrative events more popular. This is a thing that the company needs to push to make more popular and to have people do. The only time I ever see these narrative events really play or take off is in the convention setting. So if you go to somebody's local store, or if you're just going to hang out once a week, the narrative events are typically not a thing that oh, we're showing up for my one game on a Tuesday. It's not happening as much. And I don't know that there's really a lot there that the company can do to try and push that more than it already is. It's putting the scenarios out there. It's saying, hey, here's a way you can play. But I think from the company standpoint, they're doing basically everything they can to say, hey, this is an option. I think if we're as a player base looking at it and saying that, hey, we want these to get played more, we want to see these more, that it's really the TOs, the player base that have to show up and say, hey, you know what? I want to play this. I want to see this on the table. Whether it be just hey, we've got some new people, we want to hang out and try and do something, or whether it be just it's a couple weeks before the next convention, we're not really looking to do anything super serious. Let's just have a fun day. But I think as far as trying to push that to the greater audience, that's a tall ask outside of a setting where you already have a bunch of people.
So Isaiah, you had your hand up as well. You want to jump in?
Yeah, so definitely, Ryan's sentiment on my thoughts on it, and I'll piggyback on what Galzo said. Yeah, so the company's presented us with the narrative options, and as someone who's in tons of conventions, helping running them and everything else, people are definitely excited to play this in a convention setting really quickly. It's one of the first things to get sold out normally per conventions before even the IG events and any other thing else going on. People are immediately jumping up for it, especially when we had the reveal of our large Dragon for Warfare weekend couple years ago when people were super excited for that. Got tons of traction. People were talking about it, taking pictures, how large this thing was, and it's stuff like that is what excites people and everything else, and that's fantastic. But on a local level, I think the issue comes down to especially as we present returning and our new players, the first thing we have a habit of talking about is Steamroller, right? As like the standard to play. And what maybe as an option for is getting people into just enjoying it through the narrative stuff, and maybe sometimes creating something on our own, on top of whatever's with Steamforge. So like, while we do teach people about zones, back then the zones, for us, their objectives and everything else, but just taking that time to just say, hey, here's a casual scenario to play. Again, just teaching you in, or breaking the mold of what you normally do, I think is also a fantastic idea as well.
Awesome. Andy, you had a comment, and then I want to move on after that.
Yep. To Zeke's and Ryan's point, yeah, it is on the players. It is on but it's got to be sort of a collaboration, right? The dumping Battleforge maps onto the app with very little fanfare doesn't get people excited to play them. SFG can do a lot more when it comes to tying things into lore, tying things into storytelling. That's what narrative is about. If you get somebody excited because they're defending an Orgoth invasion of some specific area that they are tied to, that's what's going to get people to want to play Battleforge scenarios. Our Maryland meta just south of us ran a full steamroller just doing Battleforge scenarios, which was really, really cool for them. It only happened once, but it was very popular and people had a good time. But it's not exactly going to be the norm. I agree with that when it comes to, if you're going to run a steamroller, you're going to run 100 points, you're going to run a steamroller. Like, that's just how it's going to be. But I think SFG can do more to produce fanfare for maps, to say, this map is tied into this story, and we're going to tell a story with this map that you can play on the board at home.
So I just want to
agree.
respond to that real quickly, because I mostly agree with you, but I think the way to do that, though, is then to have the scenarios be connected. I think like how they did Oblivion, where it was, oh, here's like a tree of scenarios to go in order to make it feel like you're progressing a story, was a good way to do it. Just random scenarios that say, oh, this time you can attack a Khador outpost. Oh, this time you could defend from, an Orgoth. Like, that does a little bit because it has something behind it, but it only does a little bit. I think for what you're talking about, it would be better to have an actual progression system, to have something like a map campaign, to have something like that tree where it's at, oh, you go from this scenario to this scenario depending on what happens. Like, that I think is more of what you're talking about and looking for. And I agree with you. That would be a thing for anybody. That could be a hell of a lot of fun.
We saw that with the Mark One campaign, which is kind of cool. So, was that what you want to say, Dan?
Yeah, I was going to ask if any of you guys had remember the Mark One escalation campaign.
Escalation, yeah.
That was one of the coolest things I've ever played in this game. Yeah, they haven't done anything like it since.
It was pretty open to interpretation, and like, it was a bit of we weren't quite sure what to do in a lot of places, but it was really cool how it went.
It was like the Warcaster side quest missions, just kind of like fun or insanely hard things for you to do. And that of course had the benefit of being in a book. It's harder to run a big campaign like that out of the app.
Awesome. If we don't have any more comments, then I want to move on to the next topic. So the next thing that we want to talk about was local SRs. They've certainly been the backbone of growing metas and having people learn the game. So the next question is, how do you make a local SR of 4 to 8 people as great as the big events, and how to draw people to them? So I want to go to Erica for this question first, because you've been running quite a few SRs this year.
Sure thing. So we like to, what we do with Delaware Warmachine is we like to theme our SRs. We also like to, a few times a year, we collaborate with some local charities. So every February, we do our February food machine with Food Bank of Delaware. For December, we do our Secret Santa steamroller, which has been called the Winter Argus Invitational Steamroller, where we do Secret Santa gifts as models, for presents for everybody that goes. Um, the big thing, definitely pretty tables. So to lean back into the 3D table, my brother, I need to give him huge kudos because he's very passionate about his table design. And we really, really try and bring the world of the Iron Kingdoms to all of our players. So if you ever come to Nova or Susquehanna Scuffle, we really try and make each table very themed. Like we want you to feel like you're fighting at some blown up train yard in Kador, or you're fighting in some whimsical forest in Ios. Paul created these beautiful scorn tables that we premiered at Nova this year. So that kind of stuff just kind of makes our players feel more like they're in that world. It makes it feel more visceral for them. The other thing is reaching out to SFG or even other areas to help promote your event. A community finder, Discord servers, Facebook, just to get out there and advertise what you're doing or whatever social media platform that you're on. And again, like really tapping into your audience to see what kind of event that they would like to run. The other thing that we've really taken to heart is regardless if we have an 8-man steamroller or a 20-man steamroller, we cap all of our events at 3 rounds. The reason for that is because we'll have players that travel very long distances. So we don't want them on the road late at night. It's a safety concern, and it's just a really long day. There's also tiebreakers in the steamroller packet for a reason, right? The other reason is for outside of the game, like the game is the catalyst that brings us together. We really, really lean into the community part of it. So like I love after round 3 going out to dinner with everybody. Like that's a highlight. Like that's a highlight of my evening. So it's really just tapping into your audience, working with your LGS, or even being creative. Like maybe you do a steamroller at a brewery on a weekend that they don't have a lot of clients. There's ways that you can be creative with it to help promote your event, or just theme it and make it fun, depending on the time of the year.
So I want to go to Kyle real quick because you just finished running a big food machine event. So I want to talk a little bit about your experience there, and then we'll go to Nate and Isaiah because they had their hands up.
Yeah, so we just ran our food machine back in the beginning of November. It was only 8 people playing, but we had probably 15 to 20 people in the brewery that have played the game in the past, and we're just kind of hanging out, looking and seeing things, catching up with people.
Kyle,
we
you got to say how much money you raised. That was so impressive. Make sure you
We
got to pat
raised-
yourself on the back.
raised just under $3,500 for the
$3,500
CNY food
for
bank.
8 people. Kudos to you, man. Way to go. I'm sorry. Keep going.
How much of that was Rick spending money to just do nonsense for like 3 rounds?
I never got anything from Rick.
Nonsense.
Yeah. If he showed up, it probably would have been like, 6. I can say this though, the meanest thing someone did was the Infernal Caster with Gorton feet, which was not nice.
That was my local.
Yes. Otherwise, I advertised it on Facebook, Discords. It just, I think a lot of it was because it was a casual event. A lot of people didn't want to come out for it, unfortunately. But it still was a success. Everyone had a good time.
Well, keep in mind that Food Machine especially, right? It is a cheat format, right? And people play Warmachine because it is the best rule set out there for miniatures games. And you're saying, hey, spend a day and spend money and spend your time, specifically not playing a really good rule set. So, don't beat yourself up about the number. You did a fantastic job of that Food Machine. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and the community effort that we had for all of the 3D terrain painted, everything on there, it was really great. I've been printing nonstop and making sure we have that, and the locals have been really stepping up, helping get everything painted.
Awesome. Nate was next with his comments.
Yeah. Something that we did earlier in the year, which ended up being really fun, was I made, like, even at a small event, I just made an achievement sheet that was there for like folks who were newer players specifically to get achievement points and like basically win like a prize for doing fun stuff at the table. But I also specifically made like some of the top tier achievements, ones that like more competitive or more experienced players like could not earn, which would have been like play a player who is qualified for Warfare Weekend, right?
So you set
Play
up
your
bounties for them. There were bounties for them
yeah,
there,
like
right? Yeah.
play your first tournament game of Mark IV, like stuff like that. So
Would you say there were Boker bounties?
I would not, in fact, because that would be copyright infringement.
And also too much alliteration.
Yeah. So just little things like that that make playing the game like give you an additional goal besides just winning the game, like working to learn some cool mechanics or do other stuff on the table. That's all.
So Isaiah, you can go ahead and then we'll try and move on from this topic.
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of sentimenting. So, like, I have a food machine coming up in a week. Our first one we ran beginning of this year was a very big success. It's something we're doing again. But no, like the biggest thing I try to push for any of my events, especially anything I feel casual, is I communicate with my players about, what they're interested in, what they're looking for, and work with some of our other game stores who have TOs, and we kind of try to bounce things off because, not everyone wants to play in a competitive style event all the time. Not everyone wants to play in a casual event all the time. So we kind of bounce around and kind of get the feel of the player base, but we try to make sure, everyone's happy and enjoying things. But my biggest thing is that I'm also learning from other game systems because I kind of play a little bit of everything. So like barring an idea I got from some Conquest players is that they have something called like Master and Apprentice, essentially a two-man team event, but you have to someone experienced plays with someone who's new so they can kind of learn by side by someone who's experienced and everything else, which is a fantastic idea. We've kind of done it before, but now that hearing an official name for it sounds really great. So something we can again push for at least a couple times a year, both for demo purposes, because you have someone with you kind of see how they play the game versus how you're learning to play the game, and other types of ways, or you're a returning player wanting to learn Mark IV but feeling a little nervous, So there's some fantastic ideas to take in. So my biggest thing when it comes to like local games, we treat every game as something enjoyable. As Erica mentioned, going out and getting food together, building that community vibe is the most important thing. And you try to scratch as many itches as you can. Not everyone wants to play, as I said before. Not all my competitive players want to play a casual game. Not all my casual players want to play a competitive game. Some just like playing two games and they're done. And that's perfectly fine. But even if they just come in for two games, drop, and just want to hang out, that's fine. We want to make sure everyone's enjoying themselves, with smiles on the face. We have some cool ideas, get feedback from everyone, and just bring a happy style to everyone. Because we then get interest from other game groups who want to kind of see what we're doing, what's new, and everything else, and make it a full community-driven adventure. And huge shout out for Damon for Siege Invitational, because a lot of people come out and enjoy the tables that Damon's put together and all the cool stuff that he does for that. And the community that Terrence does for cooking food for it and everything else. Like, it's a huge community vibe that both the Minority Report and we all try to perform for this game because we enjoy it, but we also enjoy the company we bring with it, and that's the biggest thing.
I think it's kind of cool that the app now has functionality for the two-headed giant format as well. That's kind of cool. So Seth, you got your hand up, so you go ahead and make your comments, and then we'll move on from this topic.
Okay, well, I'm not going to say anything. Everyone's put out really great ideas and great things that all of us do to keep the regular average steamroller as awesome as it can be. But I want to remind folks that the TO has a lot of power round one. Right, everyone's paired randomly from 2 on, but round 1. So in an event where we have really new players, I don't pair them round 1 with someone who is a very intense player, or someone who's just not particularly good at working with new players, right? Like, sometimes I'll say to someone, hey, it's like their second tournament. Are you okay with that? Or do you want me to? And they'll, oh, no, I can show them the ropes. It's all good. And sometimes people are like, hey, I'm really trying to practice this list. All right, I'll arrange those pairings differently. You don't mess with them after round one, but that's just one of the ways you make sure that everyone's having the best time possible. And the other is, I love Nate's idea with the achievements during the game. I was just teasing him about the bounty stuff, but and then, like, you got to publicize it. Like, that player who got that amazing assassination, or put his warjack, or put her unit in a fantastic position. You snap a picture of that. You put it up on the chat for the club or whatever. Hey, check out this championship move right here. And it's just one of those things that people want to go to lots of things, and a lot of people couldn't make it. Well, they want to live vicariously through you. Put those pictures out. Make people. What's the term there, Gonzo? FOMO? Am I getting that term right? Yeah.
Yes, boomer.
Yeah. You couldn't go the night without getting that one in there, but that's okay. So create some FOMO for people. Make sure they know that they missed something good. All right, sorry, Mario, back to you.
That's okay. I realize that I've missed a question, which is awesome. So I want to move on to one more topic, and I think this one's an interesting one. So what I'd like to do for this is just go around and just get everybody's super quick thoughts on it, just like off the cuff thoughts on it. So the question here is the Mark IV barrier to entry higher or lower than previous editions? Consider everything from rules, factions, and format. So I'm going to go to Gonzo first, and then we'll just go around the room and see what people think. Just like right off the cuff.
Lower. Right off the bat, lower. It's easier for people to get in. Costing, able to build an army quicker. You got the cadres, and it's just a whole lot easier for people, in my opinion. I think it's one of the best starting points. Doing these pre-built armies and cadres and buying your pieces helps out a lot for new players. Also, easier on the money book.
So next, Isaiah, what do you think?
Definitely agree. Definitely lower. Mainly because of the power of as mentioned, the 2-player box command starters. Because they introduce you to one of everything that you kind of have to have in the game. Where before the battle box was just a caster and 2 jacks. Yes, it taught you the core of it, but now that you have a little bit of everything, I can learn the caster, a jack / warback, war beast, a unit, and a solo. So I have a little bit of dip of everything that I need to do at least to get into the game.
What about you, Seth?
So I'm going to say in some aspects it's much easier. What Gonzo and Zeke said in terms of acquiring armies and army boxes and product and all that kind of stuff. The rules are in a fantastic place for a newer player. But I think that they're not doing a good enough job selling this game world and the story. I think that's an important piece for folks. Like, right now I think people pick armies based on, hey, that looks really cool and this is its theme. I think there needs to be a little more done to connect to the greater game world and the great game story. And then what hasn't changed is it's still an advanced miniatures game, right? You're still going to play a lot before you start feeling like you know what you're doing and win games not on accident.
Next, we'll go to Nate.
I'm probably going to be the first one who disagrees. I think mechanics-wise, incredibly easier to get in. Holy crow, so much easier. Product-wise, I think right now it is a hot mess, and the number of new players who have wanted to get in and who have been asking me, like, what is this box that's on the store shelf? But it's like different from this one that's on the website, and the one that's on the website I can't even order. And there just is a lot of confusion around the product right now. I think that might be hopefully a temporary thing. And I also feel, and this again, like, might just be me being an old person, like old man yells at cloud here, but I also feel like it's more expensive to get into the game now than it was previously. Like, when I got in, I bought my 2 Angeliuses, 2 Scythians, and then I bought Veil 1 and Saren 1, and like there was my, or Veil 2 and Saren 1, and like there was my army, right? It was a lot less.
Oh, everything's more expensive these days. Next, I want to go to Ryan.
So I think from a monetary standpoint, it's much easier, like having the boxes all be like you had said, where it's a caster, jack, uh, unit solo altogether is great. I think it's a lot less decision making for somebody who maybe doesn't know as much about the game or know what's good, air quotes, and what isn't. I think from a rules standpoint, I think there's a lot to be desired for a new player. We see on like the Discord on the rules forums and stuff all the time questions that come up of like, oh, can this person really take the speed 4 unit and they actually move 8 inches because of unit placement and they can kill me? Like there's things like that that just for us having played it are very at this point intuitive where it's like, oh yeah, you actually have to watch these things. But for somebody who's brand new, it comes out of just nowhere. And I think especially from that perspective, you really have to watch those kinds of interactions and even the ones that like aren't really well defined. An easy one that comes up for me is like Shiris. She's got witch mark on a dagger and a spray that can only go 8 inches and the dagger can go 11. What happens? It's never happened before, and to try and find that ruling is really difficult. So for like a new player to try and understand what's happening when you get those things and those are in the starter box, it can be very intimidating. And I think that's a thing that needs to be worked on. We need to go back to the days of like, here's the timing chart, here's where these things happen. Instead of it being rulings on a Discord that you have to search through, it needs to be updated in the book on the regular so that when somebody is starting it, they don't have to say, here's the rules, but also I have to search through how many forum pages or how many Discord things to try and get an answer on things. Because that's one of the main things for new people we've had that immediately turns them off.
Certainly come up a few times. Next, I want to go to Erica.
So I'm going to approach this at a slightly different angle because I am one of those players that hates putting the little mans together. So for me, the new models are a huge net positive for me. So as a TO at Nova, the fact that we had potential players that went and bought a box and it's like, oh, I just have to glue the dude on the base and I can come play is huge. On that note, a slight con to that is some of the models can be difficult to paint because of positioning and because they're one single piece. You can't just like get on the sprue or just paint the arm or the so I feel my painters there. And storing some of these models, again, because they're one piece, unless you cut them up and pin them or magnetize them, sometimes transporting these models can be a nightmare because they hang so far over the base. They're beautiful, don't get me wrong. I love the little flare on everybody. I like that everybody's unique and different. But on the hobby side of the house, it does create some logistical issues. But I do like the way that the Kaja are going. I do think, and not to get on the 2-player starter box, I look at the box, this might be a bit of a hot take, more of just a 2-player box. I don't necessarily see it as a true starter box. One of the reasons is all the abilities, like a paragraph of stuff these models do that can be very overwhelming for new players. That would probably be my big thing. I think there's good nuggets there. I think we just have to hone in on the positives. And I really, really hope, and I am very optimistic in 2025 that SFG, Privateer Press, who's ever like doing the model thing, that they take the lessons learned from 24 and move forward. But as an advocate for the logistics side of the house, I hope that we see something a little different in 25.
That's a really good point, actually. Andy, you're next.
All right, I'm probably going to be a combination of Erica and Ryan a little bit here. As someone else who also glues his fingers together when trying to put together models, I do really appreciate the 3D models. I thankfully got into Brian Bloods once they had figured out the formula, so I don't have catastrophic snapping on stuff. So the durability hasn't been nearly as much of a problem post dusk-ish era. So that's been really good. But to Ryan's point, yeah, anytime people regularly question clarity of rules, especially beginners getting into a game, that can turn people off very, very quickly. So I'm hoping they can get some sort of regular errata going on where it's like, okay, we know this is unclear. We know this has been solved. Let's just get it in the rule book and say that it's solved and not have to have people search in disparate locations for it. That's also one of my bigger pet peeves.
As much as I appreciate Discord, it's the wrong place for a rules forum. Kyle, you're next.
I really think the barrier of entry is lower. Just for just someone coming off the street, they can go into a store, they can buy a box, and they can have it on the table right now within, like 5-10 minutes. Or they just got to glue stuff to the bases most of the time. 2-player box. I have rather large hands. I've only assembled Kane. I love the models, but man, holding some of those little fiddly bits have been tough. But with that, I really think it's a good time, and I think we're going to start seeing with these boxes, it makes it really easy for people to just, I think, go and say, these are the boxes I need, grab those, and then they can order the individual things that they want to have multiples of.
Lastly, we've got Dan.
I think now that SFG, sorry, has adjusted the box size so that they're a sane price, the barrier to entry cost wise is much easier. I right off the bat, I'm not saying the $200 army boxes was a bad value. It's just very, very hard to get someone to just casually drop $200 in a game they might enjoy. As far as the 2-player battle box, I agree. The rules on the models do not a starter box make, and also they kind of put themselves in a weird spot as far as like the ease of entry thing, because I feel like the one thing they wanted to accomplish was that if a new player gets their box and they open it up and it's full of busted 3D printed models, they immediately don't want to play the game anymore. However, they do have to build what are now, unless you're assembling GW models, the standard complexity for HIPS kits. Star Wars Shatterpoint, they're all like that. Marvel Crisis Protocol, they're all like that. Malifaux has been like that forever. That's just that level of complexity, those tiny pieces, that's just what HIPS kits are now. Unless you can pay GW's engineers. That's
some good points. I appreciate that we had so many different points of view on that. So that's cool. So we're sort of moving into the end of the discussion here. What I'd like to do to sort of close us all off is I want to leave some time at the end for some self-promotion, let everybody sort of tell everybody what they're looking forward to with what their channels and what their metas are doing moving into 2025. But what I'd like to sort of pair with that is just what you're looking forward to in the new year. So a couple of items that you're thinking about moving into 2025, what you're excited about, what you are planning to either to do or to run in the year 2025. And then I'll let everybody have that opportunity as well to just sort of plug their channel, let us know where people can find you, and what you're planning for your social media and stuff like that going forward into 2025. So Gonzo, I'm going to throw this one to you first.
Thanks. So of course, the More Than Dice is the podcast I'm on, and besides not only our stuff, we host a lot of other people's product there too. But a lot of us on the channel are looking to go into conventions again, are looking together to put more models on the table, see more people, play more events. I've got my entire Crix army painted up. I'm ready to put that out and just get some games in. So we're looking to see a lot of people at the conventions. The whole team is. But and that's pretty much our plan for the year is we're going to hit I am going to try my hardest to get to Boca Brawl. There's a slight plug for you there, Seth. I'm going to try, go to Adepticon, of course, Warfare Weekend. I want to try to hit Siege. I want to try to hit all these conventions that I know I can either drive or a short fly. But I want to hit all this stuff because I've got pretty models all painted up. I want to put them on the table. So, as for podcast stuff wise, you can find us always on Twitch. We do every Sunday night. We have our podcast live, and then Wednesday we do hosting a painting channel. So we just hang out on Twitch and paint models and have fun. Right now we're working on a bunch of different projects. A couple of companies would send us some stuff, and we've got to get some more models painted out because we've got to do battle games and report on stuff, everything. But we're going to be working on a lot of painting on the channel. I am actually going to enter my first painting competition, and I am looking forward to, getting that done and working really hard. I've got 3 months, and I hope I can get it done.
So, Isaiah, what's going on for you for 2025?
Podcast wise, Minority Report. As always, we're definitely trying to get more recordings out for everyone to listen to. We're also looking to finally start making our jump into YouTube and Twitch to get some more stuff sharing of what we're looking to kind of showcase to everyone, some cool ideas we have on the board. But yeah, and then of course Siege Invitational, always looking every year to make it bigger and better for the community. And that's always our plan. Definitely everybody checked it out. But our main place is mainly on Spotify, and we post on our Facebook page right now, but we will be expanding come January. Me personally, I'm looking to get back out to start playing a lot more. Hopefully, won't have another job layoff to stop me from from making out the Booker Brawl. So that is definitely on my aim. And then as someone who's handling all the Warmachine stuff for Warfare Weekend, definitely get information out for guys for IGs and get a lot of cool stuff running for next year because there's a lot planned and a lot planned. So yeah, want to try to make things great for everyone, everyone we deal with. And then hopefully we all collaborate more together and a bunch of fun stuff.
We were talking off air about what the plan was going forward for Iron Gauntlet in 2025. We don't have that information yet. You're going to let us know when you know what's going on with that.
Hopefully I'm shooting for the next week, at the most 2 weeks, but I'm shooting for next week. Trying to get all that together, guys. I promise.
Awesome. And Seth, what's going on in Jersey?
Well, in the short term, we do have the 2024 Boki Awards show coming up. That's our next podcast. That was something we started last year. We just tried to recognize people in our community that were doing great things, and they would get a Boki Award. And of course, they have to come to the Boker Brawl to get their little statuette. But that's not a requirement to be awarded the Boki. And then moving into 2025, of course, we're helping out again with Captain Con this year. That team event is all sold out, but there are still spots for Friday. There's also a mini roller on Saturday, so if you didn't want to play in the team event, there's stuff happening there. And then, of course, the Boker Brawl, first weekend in May. We don't end our Boker broadcast season until August because we kind of do it on my school year, so the next season doesn't begin until August. But then into 2025, I'm actually the head judge this year for the WTC, so I'll be headed to Sweden. I'm really looking forward to that. And like everyone else has been saying, I want to play a whole heck of a lot more. So hopefully you see me putting models on the table starting next weekend in Buffalo, in Ryan's hometown, where I'm coming in to, just basically beat him into the ground with my army repeatedly, probably with a metal sock jack, but still, a beating is a beating.
Awesome. And Nate, what's going on with you?
It's Jim, short for Jungle Jim, apparently.
Sorry.
No. What's going on with me? Blightbringers, same bad takes, same bad channel. You'll find us next year. Just probably doing the same stuff, talking smack. I think maybe trying to get more casts out next year because there won't be an election that is occupying like most of my time from August to November. Other than that, I think I'm just looking forward to like the January update finally getting here, like so things are finally settled and I can figure out what faction I'm playing next year.
I'd just like to say that that's juicy. Ryan, you're next.
First of all, I will kill you. I know that you're across the country in a different country. That won't stop me. Canada is a real place, and I can hunt you down there. Fucking play this game. Ah, it did so good too. Um, yeah, as for me, like Nate said, Blightbringers is going to keep doing whatever the heck it is we're doing. Depends on the day. Most of the time, I feel like it's nonsense, but people seem to enjoy it. So uh, I'm going to try and get more painting stuff out because I've got a bunch of time and I'm really enjoying that. Trying to figure out exactly how to do it, but it'll be fine. Otherwise, yeah, we've got a steamroller next weekend. So 3-man event. If anybody's in the area and you're listening to this and this is by some miracle out during the week and you want to come, let me know. Otherwise, as far as next year, I know a whole bunch of people in the area are applying for WTC. I know the group chat is already going off for convention schedules and who's going to what and who's going where. So expect to see a bunch of people traveling around from the Buffalo area. And for me, I'm going to try and get to what I can. Normally, I kind of just haunt the Northeast area, but I'm looking to expand at least a little bit if I can. So I don't know. Ohio exists. Maybe I'll make it out that way, or Michigan, I suppose. Both of those places are things that technically exist, and I guess I can go through Canada to get to them. So don't know why I would want to, but I can.
For people that have never heard of Lightbringers, where can they find your show?
I mean, it's a little bit of a weird way to ask that. Who hasn't heard of us? What, we're not popular enough for you? The hell? We are on the More Than Dice Network. So, if you're listening to Gonzo, you can also find us on there. We also have a Facebook page, and me and Nate haunt various Discords fairly regularly. So you can hear our bad takes in person too. It's great. Well, an internet person, same difference.
So next, I want to go to Erica and Andy for what Tried and True is up to for 2025.
So right off the bat, next weekend, December 14th, we have the Winter Argus Invitational Delaware Warmachine Steamroller. If you win, you get your name on the plaque as well as the army you played, the month and year you won, and the emblem of your army goes up on the wall. It's pretty sweet. Tried and True, we're on a bit of a, I want to say like battle report hiatus, but we're kind of on hold until the new January update comes out. So expect some really, brand new cool armies and battle reports. Also, any decisions that the company makes, we do some fun shorts and videos, for funsies. For planning purposes, we are so excited about Nova 2025. So the start of January, we're pushing out some trailers on the channel to advertise our events. Coming to Nova, we are reintroducing a team tournament that is in collaboration with Joe from Tyrants on the Field and our NAW North American War Table League. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to share it with everybody. And then Susquehanna Scuffle, we will be planning that as well. Again, I want to thank Gonzo. We fall under the More Than Dice family and umbrella, so you can find our podcasts on there. And our YouTube channel where we have battle reports, unboxing videos, and funny little meme videos for your enjoyment.
From a real life perspective, we are really excited to go to a whole bunch of conventions next year. We'll both be at Captain Con this year. This will be Erica's first Captain Con. We'll both be at Adepticon. We're hitting Siege, of course, and Bokor. Yeah, we'll be at Bokor. We got to figure out how many teams we're trucking with us this year. Let's see, and then of course we run a Nova. And you. The chip?
Yeah, if they see us to get a piece of Delaware Warmachine.
Oh, sure. If you haven't met us before, we give out everybody poker chips with QR codes for the YouTube channel and the Discord. Little 40 mil poker chip. If you see us out in the world.
Are you going to WTC this year?
That is not up to me, sir.
And then Kyle, to you, and then to Dan.
Yeah, so Arcane Precision, we're just on Spotify, and I think John puts it on Apple Podcasts as well. And we're starting doing some YouTube videos, just doing a couple unboxings, some assembly videos. Really trying to do a battle report. Haven't really had the space, but the new store we're at, there's a whole like dedicated room where we can definitely do that, which will be real nice. As far as next year, our area doesn't really have anything planned yet, as we're just getting into this new space, but there is room to have 20 to 30 people, which is going to be really nice. And I'm looking to make it to Boker. I don't have a team yet. John is with some other people right now.
We will find you a team. We will find you a team.
I plan on coming no matter what.
Who did John abandon you for? He doesn't have any other friends.
Oh, that man is very popular.
So popular, he canceled on us a half hour before the broadcast.
What a dick.
Shame.
I think he was playing bingo with his wife.
No, Dan, you're up next.
Is that what they call it now?
So our podcast is Battle Driven. We are on Spotify. I think Jeff does something with an RSS feed. I don't know what any of that means. Jeff handles the technical side. Riker talks, and I'm very large. That is the dynamic we have going on. Riker also does a lot of painting streams over on Twitch. I believe his name there is Dagger Die. The E is a 3. What else? Oh yes, we have an Instagram that I manage very poorly. But if you want to follow that Instagram, that would be cool. We publish every other week ish. And I gotta tell you, we're really chomping at the bit for to find out all the new rules happening in January, and very excited to start the 2025 season off on the floor.
What does your convention schedule look like for 2025?
A bunch of them. Definitely Captain Con, definitely Boker Brawl. I know bare minimum Riker and Jeff are going to Adepticon. I believe Riker and Jeff are going to LVO. I am not. I don't want to go to Las Vegas. For me, the only ones I've got nailed down are those couple ones. I would love to get to Siege, and you know what? Maybe this will be the year. I do like barbecue. Maybe
Code name Barbecue Con. Got it.
Awesome. So for me, we've got the Shop Talk podcast that is coming out on a much more irregular schedule moving into 2025, but we plan to keep making episodes and talking with some of the players around here that we support with our events. I'm going to take this opportunity to plug the Cascadia Championship Series that the final event is happening today, actually, December 7th, down in Bellevue, Washington. So we'll see I haven't checked the long shags yet to see who actually won that event. But we plan to have more Iron Gauntlet qualifiers in the British Columbia, Washington, and Oregon area. So if you are interested in coming out to some of the events that we have for that, please get a hold of me. We'll try and find you the details. And then we've also got a YouTube channel. So Broken Coast Warmachine, we film some of the games that we play along the coast here. It's me with the video equipment. So whichever ones I make it to, we try and film as many games as possible. And just looking forward to getting to more events in 2025. I wasn't able to make it to that many in the area this year, and just hoping that changes and we can, keep taking photos and keep taking video and just bring in the 3D terrain that we've been able to cultivate over the last year and a half or so to as many events as we can, and just get that on the table and get as many eyes on the game as we possibly can in 2025. I just booked the hall for Broken Coast Barrage, which is our large event that we have here in Vancouver for February 8th. I've been speaking to some of the players along the coast here, some of the California players that are interested in maybe making it up here. So if that's something that's interesting to you, please let me know. I think we're pretty much done with the discussion. Does anybody else have anything that they want to say before we close out here?
I love you guys.
This was really cool.
Out there.
This was really cool. I really appreciate everybody that made the time to do this today. It's I don't think this has happened in quite some time where we've had multiple talking heads in the game come together and have a really cool discussion. So thank you everybody for doing that.
Yeah,
And,
thank
you know,
you so
like-
much for getting us together.
Yeah, and like we
Yeah,
said at
absolutely.
the beginning,
Fantastic.
if you're listening out there and you're like, well, hey, you know, I know all these people, and how come they weren't on there? Do your own. Like, get people together, get them talking, do the thing,
Yep.
thing.
Yeah, this game is community based, guys. We all can talk. You know, we all have a voice. You know, but once again, as always, you know, be thoughtful and respectful when you do it as well.
And understand that some of your opinions are going to be objectively wrong.
Thank you, Ryan. Awesome. All right. Thanks you guys for coming out, and we'll catch you around.
Thanks, Mario.
Bye.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Battle
Everybody.
driven.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to our State of the Game podcast. We hope this has inspired you to collaborate, contribute, and make your local meta a place where great gaming and great gamers thrive.